Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we will be talking about the third part of the big trick, that is the second space low pincer. Last time we finished the first main variation, that is the small knight over here. Today we will be covering the kosumi. And I would say this is the most exciting video of my entire series because of the complexity as well as the insane traps that you can set up to defeat a high dan level player. Next move, white needs to play the second line peep here. This is how you would set up the trick. Now, black obviously needs to follow up by jumping here, right? So if he doesn't, we're gonna slide at f18, and this is, and basically we can't allow white to do that, right? Because when we slide, we're out. So black needs to do whatever it takes to pressure white here. Now white needs to block at d18. This is a vital point. So this is already a big place for your opponent to fall into a fatal trap. This is not a place for you to gain a lead. This is a place for you to just defeat your opponent right here. And when I say your opponent, I mean anyone. I mean a 7 dan level player, 6 dan level player. The reason you can catch a 7 dan or even 8 dan level player is because a lot of high dan level players have great intuitions, but their reading is not there yet. Right? Their readings are not very strong, so they rely a lot of times on their intuition. But this is exactly what our trap is for our opponent to follow their intuition and fall into our trap. So the intuitive move for a lot of players would be hop at 2-2. But this is indeed a fatal move, right? This is a fatal mistake because white is going to simply capture the stone. Now we have a serious cutting point at g17. If black does not defend this, we're going to cut immediately. Let's say whatever black plays here, we're going to cut this off. And then this is broken into pieces. This corner is super small. White controls the entire outside, and this is game over. Black has no choice but to play this. But that's the same result. Black is going to pretty much resign here because white wedges at b17, and this group is pretty much killed. Now black has a way to survive a little part of it by playing here. If black plays here, we can Atari. Black obviously cannot connect back because we can capture, so black needs to play here. And now we cut black off. Black captures. Now we are able to capture these two guys instantly. We can think about pincering from the outside. This is effectively a winning position for white because white has first of all more territory than black, a lot more territory here. These guys also have influence. Now these guys are not settled, and only thing black got was a 5-point corner in here. So that's a winning position for white. You can check AI for the win rate. I'm pretty sure it's extremely high at this point. What if black refuses to live the corner? Well, if black refuses to live the corner, and then he won't live anything at all. So now we can squeeze from behind. When black captures, we go back to the same variation. So obviously black wants to connect, but then we can just connect here. Black descend, we can play here. Black plays here, we can do whatever it takes to protect the eye here. And this becomes an eye kills no eye. You can verify by yourself. If black connects, we need to throw in here. This becomes eye kills no eye. Black is dead. This is even worse than the last variation. And this at this point, a black can definitely resign here because everything here got killed. All right, so that's possibly how your coach could be knocked out here. Just by playing this move alone, right? He could easily get knocked out. And this is don't underestimate this trap, because it's very easy for people to follow their intuition and just play this move without reading it out. Now, what if your opponent does not fall for the first big trap you set up? Well, that's not a problem, right? If your opponent plays correctly, we're gonna hop at 2-2. Now this point becomes vital, right? If you play anything else, I play here. We have a lot of liberties and black is dead. So black needs to push here. At this point, white should not connect here, right? It seems like this is the only move for white to play, but white should not play this, because now black has a way to attach out. White cannot push because we have a very deadly variation that we're gonna get these guys killed. So we have to hane from the outside, black push, and then black connects. So while this is hard to read, I will state the conclusion is that this liberty fight is not going to work for white, especially with this very serious cutting point on the outside. This variation does not work for white, so don't try it out in your game. Now I'm going to introduce you the most evil move I have seen in my entire life, probably. I haven't, yeah, it's not even an exaggeration. It is the most evil and powerful and just unreadable move by human beings. This is discovered by AI, and I was very stunned at the first time I see this. It's for white to play this weird looking endgame move that hanes on the first line in the middle of the fight. And this is the correct move to play. If you check with a AI software, let's say it's a Leela and it's not really strong, it's gonna get stunned at the beginning. It will be saying, well, what are you doing? But if you let Leela run for 100 or a few thousand iterations, it's gonna tell you that this is a brilliant move. So against this move, first of all, I don't even know how many people know about this move. This is just so insane, right? What is white doing, right? It's the middle of the fight. You're not connecting here. Rather, you play an endgame move that seems to not matter at all. But this is incredibly hard to deal with, and it's incredibly tricky. If black blocks from the outside, now we're gonna even play a weirder move, right? If this is not weird enough, the next move we're gonna play on the outside. So we hane here and we say, I'll leave it here, and I will squeeze one of your liberty from the outside. This is preventing the C13 thing that we talked about. Now at this point, the chances of your sensei or your coach making a mistake is insanely high. So if he's a very strong player, the first thing he will think about is to wedge here, right? Any good player, the first intuition is to wedge here. But this turns out to be already falling into a trap. Because when black wedges here, white is not going to Atari. He's not going to Atari because this variation leads to instant defeat. White is dead, right? So we block here and we can see that this is white is just short by one liberty. However, white now can connect at D19. So I'll just pause a little bit, like for you to even reflect on this situation. Like it looks like white is dead. Like white is just, it's all suiciding here. But as it turns out, there's no way for black to catch white here. And in fact, if black is not careful, he will be caught. So if black pushes at C19, for example, this is one way, and a very likely way for your opponent to fall into a huge trap, because now we can Atari from the outside. If black Ataris, we will capture, and now there's a Miai. White's gonna Atari out here. right? So if, for example, if you Atari here, I don't even need to worry. I just go back and capture your 2 stones. Now you need to Atari, we just connect. Let's forget about what's going on here, but look at black. This is dead, right? Even if you get this, well, we'll just squeeze and then squeeze here. You can throw in, I can just answer, and then this is game over because black is dead inside. This is I kills no I. All right, so first way for you to knock out your opponent is when you reach this position, this is already game over. Now, for example, if your opponent says, well, let me give up this and then connect here. Well, this is also game over because white is going to capture at g17. Now, let's analyze what's going on. This guy is pretty much useless now. If you extend, I will connect. Doesn't help at all. This guy is useless. These guys are in serious trouble. Only have 3 liberties and very ugly shape. Yeah, this guy's just a pure burden, or just they're dead pretty much. So the entire outside is controlled by white. These guys are incredibly strong. The worst problem of all is that black needs to go back and fix right now at here. Because if you don't play, white extends, nothing lives on this quarter of the board for you, right? This corner is also dead. Even if you get these moves, and then you play here, I can turn here, and then you can verify by yourself that this is effectively just dead, right? So everything dies on this quarter of the board. But if black goes back and fix, now we get the Sente to play whatever we want. This is also game over because white controls the entire outside and white gets the initiative. Now, what black has is really just these couple points. That's the only thing that black has. Black does not have the outside, black has less territory than white, and then white has 2 stones versus 2 on the outside. So that's game over, right? This is not even like a leading position. This is a game over position for black. So pushing at c19, this is a fatal mistake. So we already talked about 2 fatal mistakes now, right? This is all very deadly mistakes that your opponent can make. Now, two more resilient defense is for black to connect here. In this case, white is going to capture. Black Ataris, white is going to capture at c19. This is one possible variation for your opponent to not collapse. But this is still a very favorable position for white. The reason being that now black needs to make a choice right now whether he wants to throw in or not, right? If black plays somewhere else, white can also play somewhere else because the outside is very big right now. But if ever white gets the time, he just needs to connect here. And this is I kills no I, right? If black plays here, we can connect. If black plays here, we can Hane. If you play here, that's already dead. So so I kills no I, very simple. White just needs to fix by connecting here. But if black does want to start a ko, this is a very heavy investment because this is one move. White can just capture right now, and then since black doesn't have ko threat, he connects. We can just Tanuki. Now we get a move on the outside. It's very profitable. And black needs to spend more moves to try to get rid of this thing. And then even one move cannot get rid of this thing because because the reason you can't get rid of it is because let's say white plays another move. Oh, okay, so black can actually connect here, and then actually this kills white. Okay, so but already as we can see that the point I'm trying to make, all right, is that you need to understand that when black throws in and when you reach this position, it's very important for you just to grab territory on the outside because there's still a ko inside. that means black has to invest more moves to capture your corner, and therefore this is going to reduce the value of this corner because we get more moves as compensations on the outside. And in fact, it's very easy for your opponent to fall behind because he's focusing on this corner while we get the momentum on the outside by playing here, then we approach, and all the big moves. So at this point, literally, AI suggests black to just tanuki, play somewhere else, and then white also tanuki, okay, white also plays somewhere else, but eventually white can fix everything in one move. So this is a favorable position locally for white in the corner because white has an eye here. All right, this is another possible situation, where your opponent is also falling into a trap. It's just not as serious. It's not a deadly trap, but it's still a very big trap. Now, when white connects here, the more resilient defense is for black to connect. Looks like white is almost dead, but white can play out this move. Now, if black Ataris, we can capture. If black Ataris again, we can connect. And this is just pure evil. Like, everything is on the first and second line, but there's no way for black to capture white here. So you can verify by yourself. If black plays here, white can slide out like this. And you just can't catch this. It's so slippery. Like if you play like this, we can play out like this. And there's no way to capture this whole thing. Meaning that black has to go back and fix. Meanwhile, while white looks really terrible, black also looks as horrific as white. So these groups are equally ugly. And then these guys are incredibly strong. Black is owing a move as usual. Still needs to go back and fix this. This is also a winning position for white. Mostly because of the fact that black has to go back and fix. What about this one? Well, this one's the same. We can still slide out with a second line move. Meanwhile, realize that this attach at G16 at some point that we can work on as white. So there's no way to catch white because black is also really weak here. So then the same conclusion is going to happen because black has to go back and fix. If you play this one, obviously we have an elephant eye, so this doesn't work either. And finally, if black plays here, we can directly make use of the weakness here. And this is, if black turns, we can just pull back, and we're successfully out as well. All right, so at this position, the best move for black to play is to actually play H18. This is AI recommended. We have to capture, black blocks the exit here, and now white makes a sacrifice by haunting here. When black plays here, we can net him like this. So at this point, black goes back, capture white Ataris, black captures, and now white can go ahead and play somewhere else. Later on, white has a very serious co-threat by Ataring here, but white does not need to play right now because there's no way for black to exchange this. It only helps white out. So I understand your desire to play this right away, but you should definitely save it for a big ko, right? Whenever a ko breaks out, this is a very useful co-threat for you to Atari here. So very important for you to keep this hanging here. I know it's a little bit uncomfortable for beginner to intermediate level players, but you need to leave it here, right? This is saving you one huge co-threat, right? So that's a lot of value, just a side note. All right, but this is probably the most resilient defense at this point for black. The result of this is that eventually these guys are pretty much dead. So black gets some territory here, but white gains an insanely strong outside that extends from all the way from third line over here all the way to over here. And then at this point, white gains the momentum on the outside. This is an influence versus territory game. White gets the initiative and expand on the white side of the board. This is also slightly better position for white as well. All right, so some of these defenses are okay, and the other ones black can immediately be defeated. So at this point, when we turn here, we talk about the wedge. So I hope this is pretty clear why this isn't such a great idea. Now, what if what are some of the other variations that black can play out? The other variation black can play out is to capture here, which is the correct variation. White needs to now connect. So now white gets the connection, and now white also is able to block the exit. Black harness, and now what we need to do is at this point, I think this is already pretty much a Seki inside here, so we can pretty much just let's see. So black can push here first, right? First, creating problems for white on the outside. This is the optimal solution. And then play here, and then Hane here. This becomes a Seki inside. So I think we talked about a similar position in the last video, so you can check that out, why this is a Seki. White's last move is the hop here. This is an excellent move that expands white's moyo and reduces black's moyo. This is a very crucial move for you to end this variation. The result of this is that these things got canceled out in the corner. Black's moyo here is really small comparing to white's moyo, but realize that black has an extra move on the outside, and then black has the sente here. So this is more or less an equal position moving forward, with you having the advantage knowing that this is a Seki inside the corner, right? So you don't need to spend the time to calculate. You just know from me that this is a Seki, so that would save you time, and time is more or less an advantage in your game as well. All right, so that's the first variation. What are some of the other possibilities, right? So these are not the only ways that your opponent can fall into a trap. So when white Hane is here, you might also have a question, what if black make use of my weakness here? When black does this, white's gonna Hane, black's gonna block here. This is also called black falling into a very serious trap. This is also fatal, I would say. The reason is that if we analyze it carefully, white cannot pull this back right now because you've played this. There's obviously this problem where your stones are captured. But given that we know this variation, all what white needs to do is to hop at g15. And now this variation doesn't work anymore because we have a g15. So if you play this one, and now this is gonna work for me because there's no way to catch my group anymore. If you play here, I can successfully get out, and that's game over because these guys are killed, and then white also killed these. This guy is also kind of dead, so that's game over. But if black does fix the outside, let's say he fixes in a very efficient way, let's say we cut over here, what happens over here is that white is broken, But look at what happens here. Now, white has a Tsuji, that is the Hane at f18. This is kind of game over for black as well, because these guys cannot get out, right? So these guys are dead, basically. And it's not obvious for a 7-dan player. If his reading is not very strong, he probably struggle to run. And this is what you're hoping for as the person setting up the trap. Let's see some of the ways that black can struggle here. So if black plays the clamp here, white is going to play the h17, right? So I guess you need to do a little bit of memorization if your reading is not very strong. Is to know if black struggles this way, you play here. This is a Tsuji. Now what can black do, right? If you play this one, I will connect. If you connect, I'll clamp here. If you Atari, I'll connect. I have 4 liberties and you only have 3. That is an instantly game over, right? So that struggle doesn't work. Now, if you pull the stone back, it's more or less the same story. I will block over here. If you extend down, I will just squeeze here. If you Atari, I can connect. And then black has only 2 liberties. If black pushes here, we can Hane here. If you push over here, I can play here. That's also kind of game over because black has no way out. If you play here, I can cut. If you Atari, and then connect, we can still play here. And there's no way for black to get out. And of course, if you Atari here, white can connect. If you turn, I can play here. If you play here, I can keep going. And if you play here, I can keep going. When you Atari here, I don't care about the stone. I can just connect here and then kill everything. That's also game over. So we said the clamp doesn't work, the push doesn't work. What about this one? Well, the same variation. We always need to we always need to play the h17. Now, if black plays here, we can cut. Right, so this is also game over. The throw in doesn't really do anything. If you block here, this is already over, right? So black is dead. And what else can you struggle? If you play here, this is a squeeze Atari. If you capture, I can capture, and these guys are dead. And that's also a knockout. And that's pretty much it, all right? We talked about the kosumi, we talked about push, we talked about the clamp. Nothing works. So make sure you remember why none of these variations work. And then in the actual game, if your opponent falls into this trap, the more moves he plays here, the more severe the consequences are. And then the harder it is for him to come back later in the game. So at this point, the conclusion is that these 4 guys are dead. There's absolutely 0 ways tactically to come out because I showed you all the readings and the technical variations. So just remember them and then hope your opponent make the mistakes of trying to run these guys. So I hope I have covered all the details. At this point, when black squeeze here, we have this very evil move. Like, I am surprised and impressed by this move, definitely. What are some of the possible variations? We talked about the attach out. We talked about the block. The wedge here is not a problem because we can Atari. If black, I don't know, if you have to go here, then I connect. If you play here, we're back to the variation that we talked about. And there's a, black needs to play here, and then we can turn, right? We can just go back to the same variation. We talked about this already. So the wedge is also not a problem. So this is definitely a move that can shock your opponent in the actual game. It will really make him confused for a couple minutes, and then very easy for him to fall into a trap. So this is a very powerful trick. And then this is the great results of a very strong AI, the research of very strong AI. What else I want? Do I want to make an extra video on this to talk about some branch variations? I think I do. We need to end the video for today because this is a lot of content for you to try to memorize. I think the next video we will do some wrap-ups. We'll talk a little bit about how black can dodge this trick by playing variations such as this one. We'll also talk about how we can the different ways we can reach this position. So a lot of times your opponent will approach from here. We can also play the 2-space low pincer to reach that position. Is that when black plays here, we can attach. Black plays here, we can cut over here. And then if black descends, we're back to the variation that you absolutely love. If black plays here, this is also a trap. So this is a horrible position for black because white gains a huge amount of territory and black has a very inefficient stone at f16. So, but my point is next video will also cover some branch variations such as this one. Right, we'll look at, well, what if your opponent does not go into exactly the variation you want him to go into? I think that's worth talking about. So I'll definitely spend an extra video, I'm pretty sure. So stay tuned. If you like my channel, like all these trick videos, you should definitely subscribe if you haven't and give a like. That would really help my channel out. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time.